Let's make halim on a weeknight. Come along while I use the Easy Cook Halim mix for the first time and give you some tips and tricks along the way. To start off, we're going to put some oil into our pressure cooker. I'm using an Instant Pot, and then we're going to saute our beef. You only need a little bit of beef for this. The recipe calls for 250 grams. That's what it says on the back of the box of the Sean Easy Cook Halim mix, but I had 320 grams here, which is like 3/4 of a pound of meat. So you really just need a little bit of meat to make this. And inside the box, you're going to have 2 packets. The first one we need is the spice mix. The other one is like the lentil mix, which we'll put in later. But we're going to start with adding the spice mix onto our meat, and then we're going to saute it for a little bit. And once we've browned it on all sides, we're going to add our water for the pressure cooking, and you need about 8 cups of water. The back of the box is going to tell you to add 15 cups of water, and that is ridiculous. It will never get thick if you add 15 cups of water, so 8 is my recommendation. And then I'm going to put this to pressure cook for 30 minutes, but honestly, I could have even done 40 minutes. It would have probably been a little bit easier to shred that way. So after our meat has pressure cooked, we can release the vent. And anytime I pressure cook meat, the first thing I do is check to see if the meat actually got tender, because I've had Instant Pot glitches where it didn't actually pressurize and the meat was still hard. So that should be the first thing you do. And once you confirm it's tender, just place it on a plate. So separate the meat from the broth. And then we're going to shred this meat with 2 forks. So when you shred it by hand, it's a better texture. But if you really want to, you could shred it in your blender or you could shred it in your food processor. I just prefer it this way, but if that's easier for you, go for it. Next, we're going to move over to the stove, put a pot on high, and then add 8 cups of our broth. And then once that starts to simmer, we're going to add the second packet that came in the Easy Cook Halim box. This is what they call the grains, like the pulsed grains packet. It's basically just the wheat and the barley and the lentil that you need to cook halim, and they've like pre-pulsed it for you. So it's supposed to be smooth. But when I added it in, and again, this is the first time I ever use this mix. I usually make halim like the old-fashioned way. And if you want to see that, that's further down on my page, the more in-depth halim, like traditional tutorial. But when I added this packet, I was shocked that it was so lumpy. Like, I thought that it was going to be smooth immediately. So I started stirring it, hoping that the lumps would start to go away. And then I thought, okay, let me just let it cook, and maybe when it's done cooking, it won't be lumpy anymore. So I let it come to a simmer, and then I put the lid on and let it cook for 30 minutes on low. So after 30 minutes, I lifted the lid and I wanted to check to see if that lumpiness went away. And there were still those lumps of the grains in there. So I let it simmer some more. I started stirring it and I wanted to see if that would help. But finally, I just got frustrated and I grabbed my immersion blender. So after blending it with the immersion blender, it definitely got rid of the lumpiness, and it didn't take that much. It was just a few stirs and pulses. But in my opinion, you shouldn't have to do this with an Easy Cook Halim mix. It should be easy cook. Having to use an immersion blender to me is an extra step. So that is some criticism I have of this mix, but just know that you might have to do this too. And if anybody has any tips on how to not make it not lumpy when you add the grains mix, please let me know in the comments. After blending, I let it simmer for about 20 minutes on medium, uncovered, to let it get thicker. While it was simmering, I chopped up my garnishes. So typically you garnish with julienne ginger, a little bit of cilantro just for presentation, and limes, and you can also add chaat masala. Now, traditionally, you're supposed to add the tadka, which is the fried onions, but to me, this is a weeknight halim, and if I have to cut an onion and fry it and make the house smell like onions, that is a weekend activity. So I did not do the tadka, but if you want to, of course you can. To me, I really don't need it though, and I think it just adds extra oil. Of course, when I'm trying to do something fancy and serve guests, I'm going to do it, but for this, just for, family weeknight type of a thing, I'm not going to make a tadka. So again, if you're just serving this on a weeknight, no need to plate it and do a nice presentation. But of course, for my videos, that's what I do. So I figured I would show you. So I just added this to a nice bowl, and then I added the julienne ginger, a little bit of cilantro, the limes on top. You could also add chili peppers. And if you did decide to fry the onions, you would add them on top too while the oil was still sizzling. But overall, I think that this is a good halim mix. It's very delicious. Like, the flavor is awesome. It's not as textured as the halim is when I make it the traditional way. If you're interested in seeing that, just scroll down on my page. I have a halim video, how I make it, using like all the separate ingredients. But overall, I thought this was pretty good. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you used this mix before, and I hope you try it and enjoy.